Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Freeman and I'm here today to talk to you about end of course testing. And so, as your student's high school history teacher, there will be some tests coming up at the end of the year that we just want to make sure that everyone's aware of and that they kind of have a basic understanding of these tests before we go into them so we can kind of alleviate any questions from the beginning. So let's get started. First of all, in high school and also some middle schools, end of course tests are usually referred to as EOCs, and they are taken throughout the state of North Carolina. These are summative tests, which means that they are taken at the end of a term or at the end of a unit, in this case at the end of a course in which students are measured through their growth from the entire course. And as you can see, they measure individual growth for each student as well as group growth for classrooms, schools, counties, and then the state itself. In our particular area, we'll be concerned with the Economic, Legal, and Political Systems test and the U.S. History test, since our subject is history. Just a little bit of extra information about EOCs. After the tests have been taken, you will receive a report of your students' results, and those usually come in the mail. Also, the tests are quite a large amount of your students' final grades. They are 25% at the minimum of their final grades. And each EOC is given in a 120-minute session during the last 10 days of the course. Now, North Carolina end of course tests were developed for two purposes, and these two bullets here come straight from the North Carolina Standards website, and it's to provide accurate measurement of individual student knowledge and skills specified in the North Carolina Standard Course of Study, and to provide accurate measurement of the knowledge and skills attained by groups of students for school systems, and state accountability. So, in other words, there's basically two different sides to EOCs, one of them being to measure individual student growth, and the other to contrast that to other students in the same class, the same school system, and the same state. So, going along with that, who do these scores benefit? In practice, these scores are supposed to benefit students in the way that they show students what they have learned thus far that semester, and how they compare to other students who also take the test. They benefit parents in the aspect that they know how their children are doing in school compared to other students, as well as whether or not they are getting the skills that they will need to enter the workforce. And then EOCs benefit teachers because they help teachers understand what concepts their students have mastered or that they have taught really well. And then also, if there are similar targets or concepts that their students overall do not do so well on, then they can go back maybe that next year and try to focus on improving those standards. Scores benefit legislators in the sense that they help legislators understand how students are comparing to other students around the state to make sure that all students in North Carolina are on the same page, as well as using these scores to compare North Carolina to other states in the U.S. And finally, these scores benefit community members in the sense that they are available for community access so that the public can see what their tax dollars are going towards in their local community. Now, we're going into the scoring, and this is going to be the kind of methods and terms that are used that you're going to see on the report whenever you get it in the mail. So this is just kind of a beginning definitions of these scores, and once the scores come to you in person, you can go back and look at these again, and if you have any additional questions, you can let me know. So first of all, a raw score is the number of questions answered correctly. Essentially, this is a very basic form of a score. So for example, if on the UC there's 90 questions and your child gets 80 of them right, their raw score would be an 80. Now, a percentage correct score is the percent of questions answered correctly. And so that means that you would divide the number answered correctly by the number of overall questions. Therefore, if your student gets 80 out of 90 questions correct, the percentage correct score is 89%. And then going along with that, percentile score is an individual student's ranking in comparison to other students who took the same test. Now, sometimes it's kind of easy to get percentage and correct score and percentile score mixed up. And what I like to use to remember the difference is that percentage correct is two words. So that means that you would have one number over the other number, meaning that you would have the number correct over the number of total questions. Whereas with percentile, it is usually just a percent. And so therefore, going along with our same example, let's say that this student that has an 89% percentage correct score is ranked in the 90th percentile of his class. That means that this child has scored better than 90% of the other students who took the test. Scaled scores. These scores are converted raw scores that compare different forms of the same test. So, in other words, it might be the case that students take the same test on a different day, and some of the questions are different in case students are trying to compare answers, or if questions vary from county to county within a state. Scaled scores are meant to compare all of these different tests that are essentially testing for the same thing. And once the scale scores are determined, they are used to determine the achievement levels of these specific subjects. So you would have an achievement level for each different topic within U.S. history or government and politics or another one of the history tests. And achievement levels come in 4 levels, the highest level being level 4 and the lowest level of comprehension being level 1. And these are used to compare your child's performance to the grade level expectations that have been set by the state. In addition, the mean is the average grade scored on the test. So that would mean that going back, our child that got an 89% on his test could very well be above or below the mean, depending on the other scores that are given to the test. Grade equivalent. A grade equivalent is an estimate of what grade most students are in who perform at the same level. So for example, our student that we've been talking about, let's say that they are in 9th grade and they're taking a 9th grade U.S. history EOC. If they score really well on the test, then their grade equivalent could mean that they are actually performing at an 11th grade level, so that they would be above the norm of the grade equivalent. However, this does not mean that the student would be placed into a higher class. And on the reverse end of that, if a student was only measuring up to an 8th grade level equivalent in a 9th grade class, that does not mean that that child would be moved down to the grade. It's simply an estimate to kind of compare students based on an average. Now, these next two, norm reference testing and criterion reference testing. These EOCs can be considered norm reference testing because students' growth are compared to other students as well as other schools and other counties all within North Carolina, and then those tests are compared to the state. So that means that they're being compared among people and among groups, whereas criterion reference testing is where a student's growth is compared to specific learning targets, and those would be actually the different aspects of the subject that they're trying to learn. And so you can think of norm reference testing as EOCs for the most part, where criterion reference testing is what occurs in our classroom, where we have set standards and each student individually tries to achieve those goals. Now, that concludes our introductory session for EOCs. Some of the information that you've seen today has come directly from the North Carolina Education website listed here. If you would like to go here and take a look around, you are more than welcome. If you also have any other additional questions, please do not hesitate to call or email me or any of your other child's teachers. We hope you have a great day. Thank you.